Hi, I'm Dr. Fred Childs. If you're a Christian leader, I'm sure that you're familiar with the language of the Bible. Phrases like, we are the body of Christ, members in particular. God has set some in the body, and others are very commonly expressed in churches and meetings, especially with leadership teams and in organizational structures. But maybe you don't know why the people are there. Did you know that there are Old Testament examples that can help us understand the New Testament church? Consider Israel in Egypt and the story of Joseph. When Joseph and his family first went into Egypt, they were only 70 strong, a small nation, but yet they were the heirs to the promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But the Bible tells us that they only had one craft, one skill, one occupation, and that was that they said that they were all shepherds. But some 400 years later, when God delivered them from Egypt, we find out that these were men of skill, craftsmen. They had learned every manner of craftsmanship, skill, and talent while they were in Egypt. Many of them were master artisans, and of course laborers at every level. And when they came out of Egypt, not only did they have these skills, but they also had resources and treasures that were given to them by the Egyptians before they left. Now, when they left Egypt in the wilderness, instead of using these for the glory of God, they formed a golden calf. In fact, the Bible tells us that Aaron made it with a graving tool. In order for him to make it with a graving tool means that that's a skill that he learned in Egypt. But that graving tool fashioned a golden calf that became their curse. And literally, Moses had it destroyed. Later, he came off the mountain and revealed to them the plans for the tabernacle. And when he revealed to them the plans, they used their skills and their resources to build the vision of the man of God. You see, if you use the things that God has given you, and the people and their resources, then they become a blessing. If you don't use them for the work of God, they can literally become the stumbling block and the curse. Everyone knew their place. A primary role of leadership is to work with God and people, to identify everyone's skill, gift, and place in the body, and to provide understanding to them, to remove the roadblocks and the hindrances, to enable everyone to do what God has called them to do. As members in particularly, we are fitly framed together to accomplish God's will, to take on the nature of His glorious body. As the church, we are to do His work on earth. So God never sends anyone into your midst by accident. They are there for a purpose. And it's up to God where they fit in that body, and up to you as a leader to help them find that place. And leadership helps provide the pattern, the model, the pathway, so that everyone can work together to accomplish the will of God for that local entity. I pray that you enjoy this month's studies on church models. We want to help you accomplish what God's called you to do. Until then, I assure you, churchmentor.net, it works.